This meeting is going to happen in English, so I'll also speak English. I'm very happy to be able to introduce to you our today's speaker, Marina Garcés, Spanish, or should I say Catalan philosopher? Or Spanish philosopher?
We don't know.
Okay, because Marina is... So, we're not going to go into this.
Difficult question.
Yes.
We can end with that.
Okay, so Marina currently works at the Open University of Catalonia, and before she worked for many years at the University of Saragossa. She's a philosopher working with the problems generated by our life in a late capitalist society and the crisis of capitalism, especially when it comes to knowledge and cultural sector. And a very important thing that we can also discuss it later. I hope you'll be having questions and comments. The place of emancipation and the question of relationship between knowledge and emancipation. Very much in the tradition of Michel Foucault that Marina is inspired by. That's all I have to say as an introduction. The floor is yours. You're welcome to ask questions and comment later on.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this introduction and especially for this invitation. It came as a surprise through some friends in common. We shared texts, we shared discussions, and from Biennale they said to me that come and let's have these conversations directly so we can have the time and the opportunity also for me to have your reflections, your ideas, or we can reflect together during the time we have this afternoon. The title of the talk is Humanities in Transition. In fact, is the title of, it's not this one, I put another one just to begin to open an open game of ideas. I will talk about that. Humanities in Transition is the title of a lecture I gave in Barcelona 2 or 3 years ago now, 2.5. And it was the beginning of a collective project, I will talk about it too, called Knowing, Understanding. And during 2 years we've been gathering 20 different voices of the city, not only from Barcelona, Madrid, but especially Barcelona, that in some way are engaged in the challenge of making humanities something concrete, something experimental, something practical in our cultural and academic context. I will talk more about that. The keynote to open this project was Humanities in Transition. That's the same title we took here to continue this discussion. And that's why I will start not by very theoretical thesis, but telling you a little bit about the collective contexts of my work. Jan presented me as a philosopher, is what I feel I am. So, because I studied philosophy, because I teach philosophy at university, but also and especially because I understand philosophy as an activity that goes beyond the academic sphere, that goes beyond the academic discipline, that is not only an expert discourse, but is a form of engagement with what I call in some of my books a common world. No? How to think by oneself in relationship with others. No? I think philosophy has to do with that, because it's not a theory for a certain community of experts or a certain community of scientists or whatsoever, but is public word that is addressed to others. I say sometimes that it's a singular voice in search for a common reason. No? And that means that we can try to share this search for a common reason. And I say common reason and not unique reason, because a common reason is not the same reason for everyone. It's not rationalism in a sense of one model of rationality. It means that we can think about what we don't know how to think together. It's a little bit how I understand philosophy, and for me that has taken me to many different collective experiments since I started my studies at the University of Barcelona, perhaps not from the very beginning, but during my studies and then PhD, and then through all my life, I've been combining this moment, this academic and institutional moment, with two other dimensions. Also the solitude of the writing. I think that's also a very important moment to face one's writing also alone, but at the same time with different collective projects. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Since 2002, I make part of a group of people that is never exactly the same group, because it's not a group, it's an open we, an open plural of voices that is called Espai en Blanc in Catalan. That means blank space in English. Blank space, as you all know, is what opens a hole between words, for example, but also is what relates words. Without blank spaces, we wouldn't have language, we wouldn't have sense. So these blank spaces that cut the line of the discourse, but also make possible that relations can be reinvented, that can be occupied, is what means blank space. And this blank space is also an invitation to reinvent cultural and also activism, social practices, not from the idea of a blank page. Is not the modern classical idea that we can reinvent the world from zero, banishing whatsoever was before, but that we need to find the holes, the breaches that can open up other ways to experiment and to think and to make interventions in our social, cultural, and political contexts. This Espai en Blanc that has had many lives through these years, since 2002, it means a long time now. I could talk for hours about many of the things we've done: writing, collective writing, anonymous interventions, films, documentaries, and it's a practice of reinventing also institutions. It's another thing I will talk more about, institutional experimentation. When I started my activity, I think the world was more dualistic in a sense. You had the official institutions for culture, at least in my context in Barcelona and Spain. You had the official institutions for culture that were built during the transition from Franquism to the so-called democracy. We're discussing about this very, very roughly in Spain, if it is a democracy or not. But the so-called transition to democracy, with the young people who grew up in that time, we had official institutions for culture, for knowledge, school, university, etc., centers for art, or, on the other side, very alternative and independent scene, but very on the margins, completely outside the system and very anti-system, through the 80s and the beginning of the 90s. That was more or less the scene. So in my case, I continued my studies, but I made my cultural experimentation, politicization, etc., for example, in the scene of the squatting houses and social centers, squatted social centers in Barcelona. That was the place in the 90s where we could find other news about the world, other ways of socializing, other ways of making culture, other ways of thinking. So that's also my school, no? This practice of squatting, this practice of relating to this official country, this already made scene to change it. It was you had to go to the extreme margin of everything. So of this combination of rigor, patience, education through a very long path at official institutions, in my case university, and at the same time this experimentation, politicization in the extreme margins of the city, of the society, grew up this blank space, and we are all people that have this double background, this radicality in the practices, and at the same time this relation to education, to academy, to university in some cases, other not so much, and we started to break this duality, to intervene with radical practices for example, at university or at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Barcelona, etc., and at the same time bring to these alternative spaces also the ideas, the references, the authors, the books that the postmodern and very sophisticated people were reading at university. No? So it was a way to make like a traffic of practices, ideas, bodies, ways of behaving from these two. Also, this blank space started to make a less clear line between walls and to contaminate, this practice also of contamination of different scenes or different dimensions of cultural life in the case of Barcelona and other cities in Spain. That's a little bit the context I've been working with. And what you have here in the screen is one of the last projects of Espai en Blanc. Well, if I go back, you will see what makes part of it. That's how we gave this one, the evolution of the world. That's how we celebrated or gave sent a celebration of the new year this year, so 2019 is a year where the evolutions are collapsing in different contexts. But this, if you can, I don't know how to do it smaller, and you can see what it is a page that is that one, and you can see all these ones. That's a publication that we are doing since 2012 called El Presentiment, the presentiment, this idea of you have this presentiment always here at the bottom, presentiment in Catalan, presentimiento in Spanish, presentiment in English. You have it, all of them, as the text is short, we can do it in the translations. We have it all in English, Catalan, Euskera, and Spanish, so you can have different languages. And this is a way of working with thought, with this ongoing thinking, through a very simple tool. It's a blank page in this case, but used as a blank space to make or to let us experiment with ideas that are emerging, that are being, that need to be expressed, but that don't arrive, that don't get to the point to be a very finished discourse or elaborated discourse in form of article or essay or book or whatsoever. And also making or searching this interaction between visual thinking and text or words. Sometimes there are more words than image, sometimes more image than words. It depends on how do we find a way to express an emerging idea, an idea that is at the point of, like a flower, when this moment before being a complete and perfect flower, this moment of this blossom that is at the point of opening itself. So this is I wanted to show it to you because you can use it, and there's always an invitation to copy and distribute. For example, I'll show you this Times of Nationalism. That's a presentiment. We find this photo. It's a great photo. Plaque. Is what you see. Is and it had this text. The gesture that pretends to attack the state cannot bear doubt, because then it becomes this simple gesticulation. This gesticulation of nationalism that tends to this also anti-state rhetoric, but burns all forms of life. So, and that's the presentiment 65. It's something that, for example, can you imagine, can you see what's on the image of this presentiment? Do you see what does the beach? That's the beach. Barcelona, no? But we are getting to this point. It's in the south, it's Benidorm. Benidorm is a beach where you can see what happens in summer. And that's a nightmare. It's like this apocalypse in real time, but people happy participating of this apocalypse. And we put this phrase, the birds are full of cages. It lets you open sense. The idea of this exercise, because I think the presentiment is especially an exercitation, continuous exercitation of thinking, needs to share the thinking situation. That's one of the things that I criticize very much of some sorts of academic philosophy or theory that understands theory as something finished that someone gives you to agree or not. You can discuss it, but the position of the thinker is, I think, and you agree or not agree, buy or not. It's a very consumist position. You can buy my ideas or not buy them. But let's think together what begins or what needs to be continued when we start thinking about certain problems. Why do we desire to spend our holidays like a plaque of like this? What are the limits of our desires? What are the cages that we have inside? And this kind of reflections that can go from this kind of issues, from very situated and political moments. That's, for example, that's one of the most repeated and copied, because this you can download a huge PDF, so anyone can print and copy and distribute this. And this here, I don't know how to make it smaller, but it says, "I have no strength to surrender." It's also a paradox, no? This idea of not having enough. So you have to continue fighting, creating, sharing, etc. But not from a position of force, no? We are heroes of thought, we are heroes of culture, we are heroes of social activism. This is another sense of fragility and at the same time resistance. No? This resistance that that cannot surrender, but not from a super heroic position, but from another sense of engagement. And I will show you a last one. That one, I will read this one. Is also we used it in many demonstrations, and because we are going through from the last a lot of years, but the last 5 years, and increasing a new, again, criminalization in Spain of any kind of dissidence and activism. So after 15M, the movement of 2011, no, the squatting of the squares after the crisis led so many people to demonstrate on the streets, to occupy the squares, to question democracy, to question the existing democracy, to question the political casta, no, the word that used the movement in that moment, etc. And when the reinforced criminalization started, we did this presentiment: our violence is to exist, because the term violence is always the term the power throws on certain people to be able to criminalize them. No? You are the violent. What's violence? Who's violent? And when violence begins? And in what ways violence is acting all the time on our lives, bodies, ideas, desires, etc. So we did this presentiment, and it became a very used big panel for demonstrations, for many kind of activities. So that's something I wanted to show you, to link you to my contexts of experimentation, but also to give clues of things that perhaps we can talk together later about how to go beyond the limits of the not the recognized and legitimized spaces for thinking, for culture, for whatsoever. No? We can do many things, but usually they are already set in certain logics and certain institutions, in certain ways of behaving, under certain protocols or codes of recognition. No? You go into academy, you need the titles, you need the recognition. Nowadays you need the publication, we were talking about that, so you need to demonstrate certain things, but also in activism it happens, and also in the artistic life, cultural life, how to break these cages, how to go beyond and occupy these blank spaces. That is for me what has to do also when we talk about philosophy. Philosophy, as I said before, is about that, going beyond the limits of what we can already think, of what we can already represent, of what we can be. No? This transgression of the being, no? In itself. That's more philosophical, but it's about that, I think, what philosophy is going, and that's why it has to do with very specific, concrete things like that. I was the first, so here you have, if anyone reads Spanish or Catalan, here you have the website of Espai en Blanc and the whole archive of these very long years of publications, activities, videos on films, and a lot of work from these years, and also the presentiment, and etc. It's just to show you. And now I wanted to go more specifically to these are my books. I had one that I lost, and I'm going to look for it. In this continuous practice of crossing the borders, of going beyond the limits, one of the main issues is what to do and how to work with the very official institutions of the city, cultural institutions. In what way we are institutionalizing certain practices or not, how to become how to go beyond the margins without becoming managers of the centers of power and discourse. That's also a question. No? And it happens all the time. And in Barcelona we have many different cultural institutions that have been proposing very interesting and critical projects and ideas and lectures and everything. So that, I mean, for example, the MACBA, the Museum of Contemporary Art. Today, at the same time, you have in Warsaw the director of the museum talking in another place. So something is between us that brings us together here. But it's just for it was not prepared. How to collaborate and how can these different dimensions of collective activity interact in a way that doesn't mean just cooptation into the institutional machine, into the institutional logic. And for me, it's also always a question, the margins, the radicality, the absolute independence can be comfortable because it makes you travel. You can become a bubble of very radicalized people and have no interaction with what is going on. But on the other side, when you start being part of the cultural scene of a place, how you maintain this tension between worlds that are in conflict also. And how to maintain this conflict alive and not just become a manager of critical thinking or this kind of ways of representing positions that tend not to be critical anymore. That's what has led to me also in many different occasions to work with MACBA, with CCCB, the Center for Contemporary Culture in Barcelona, or for example for the Biennale of Thinking. We were talking about that, for the coincidence with the name that the mayor of the City Town Council organized in Barcelona last year. And for example at MACBA, at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Barcelona, I'm part of the academic board of an independent program of studies that the museum have that gives no certificate. Is experimental pedagogy out of the academic system of recognition. So there are many different ways of being inside and outside, hacking the codes of reproduction, of self-reproduction. One of them was this Aula Oberta, this 2-year project I talked before about, because it's where this Transition Humanities started, that was entitled Saber Fer Comprendre, that means knowing, doing, understanding. And that started because there is, in Barcelona, there is, inside the CCCB, the Center for Contemporary Culture, there is a very old institution that is called, well, very old, quite old for nowadays, that everything is so quick. It's called the Institute for Humanities, or Humanities Institute, that has now celebrated its 30 years. So, in the time of this so-called democracy time in Spain, it's quite old, because it means that it started quite after a short time, 10 years after the end of Franquism. And it was an institution that had as a mission to make these classical courses about humanities, literature, history, cinema, that started recently, but very classical, very good quality, very well done, and as a way of giving to open publics good courses about humanities. The question was, after 30 years, it functions because people continue going to these courses, are always full. So we could continue like it has ever been. How to continue, not just reproducing what functions, because just doing what the public recognizes as good is not no intervention at all. And the formula we find, or they asked me to collaborate in this process of going beyond these 31st years of existence, was we don't need to vanish the past. That's also a thing I want to discuss with you, the future and the past. We don't need to just make clear the past, or just say we don't need more courses about literature, history, or whatsoever, because there are many people, and it's good that these courses exist, but how can we make that this is not the only way humanities are recognized as such? No? And we decided to open an aula, a classroom, a space for gathering during 2 years, where during these 2 years many people were invited to tell us, in the form of a lecture, what they were doing, not in a descriptive way. Tell me, what is your practice in video creation, or in linguistic search, or in whatsoever, but try to tell us what is the sense of what you are doing. Why do you find the sense in what you are doing, and how does it relate to a context of institutional practices, or political context, or interactions with other people? So why all this that you're doing? That means a reflection, not a description, but a reflection about the sense of our engagements. I think that's the clue idea of this open aula, this open space. And it was very interesting because every person invited, that you can see some of them here, had very different approaches to certain activities, but the fact of thinking about that started to develop, to generate a movement of thinking together from very different practices. You have an activist of the gender, you have a video creator, you have a mediator, you have a linguistic specialist in modern China, you have a cultural journalist, you have many different people, that the fact of not just selling their product, but thinking about what they are doing, generated what I said before, a common reason. No? We were reasoning together about the sense of what we were doing. That was open to a general public, it was not just for us, always open. So that started to make everyone think about the sense of what we are doing. And I think that's very different of the other possibility, the more classical possibility that would have been to say, what have humanities been till now, and what should humanities be from now on? No? That's the classical way of interrupting the past and thinking about using always this temptation to build up models of future, utopias of what humanity should be. Our question was, what is going on, and what are we, this open we, and what are we doing? And let's think from this situation, this situated context, and let's try to extract from there, and let also other people continue this thinking about the sense of all that. So, you can see other people here. Now we are going to publish, that's my website, you can find all my things here. And now on the 21st of this month, we will have the book about this project, this Aula Oberta project, published. And we started with Transition Humanities, that was the starting point of the beginning of the whole project. The title of the book is Humanities in Action. This idea of showing what is going on, and not what we would like to, this abstract modelation of things that are not happening anywhere. So that's a little bit the context for all that. And I wanted to share with you some of the ideas that I've been thinking about from all these experiences and these different situations of thinking by myself and with other people. A very important thing is that when you see, when you interact of what is going on, what people are doing and what should be doing, what we see very clearly, I think, and we can discuss about that, is that humanities are not, or is not useful to think about humanities as a very specific set of disciplines. Literature is history and philosophy, whatsoever. We could also even open to certain fields of artistic activity too, but very a set of disciplines. I think it's not useful anymore, but it's much more interesting to think about humanities as an open field of activities. And I define it like this: an open field of activities with which we try to make sense of human experience. And the verb try for me is important. We don't possess the sense of human activity, of human experience. We try to make sense of it. And the sense of it is the effect of trying to make sense of what we know that has no ultimate sense. And that's human experience, that's us as beings, no? So the relation between sense and non-sense is what is creative in us. That's what makes us move in search of senses that can be open and changing through time, history, cultures, etc. So with which we try to make sense of human experience from the point of view of its dignity and freedom. And these two very classical words, no, dignity and freedom, I think are important too, because if we would stop only to make sense of human experiences, there are many ways to do it. No? And today we have very powerful forces that are building up senses for us, no? To join to very powerful senses, political, religious, racial, etc., and also beyond that not necessarily stand from the point, this point of view of the question about dignity and freedom, because dignity and freedom are also words that put into question what we understand for dignity and freedom. There's no one definition of dignity, there's no one definition of freedom. Dignity and freedom are qualities of our relations, and we can appreciate or not what dignifies us in certain relationships and what makes us free, to interact, to live with others in certain relationships. So it's an appreciation, it's a question of value. What do we value about what we live by one own and with others? So for me, humanities, if we don't understand them as a set of academic disciplines, but as an open field of activities that put that into question, then we find another way of developing humanities. And that changes a lot the position. I don't know if here has been like that, but in the last years and even certain decades, the discourse about humanities has been always very nostalgic, very like a lamentation of what is being lost, what is being attacked, they don't love us, nobody wants us, we are the last of the train always, and this kind of, and that has led also to a very dangerous, nostalgic approach to cultural legacy, as something to preserve, and that's the beginning also of new conservatisms, something to preserve, something to keep away from new contaminations, because cultural legacy must be preserved and defended, and humanities or humanists have worked a lot for this, this nostalgic, conservative and defensive idea of cultural legacy. And I think that's a defensive position that ends up with conservative positions very easily, not always, but the path is very short from one position to the other. So I think that seeing humanities, as I define them, as this open field of activities and experimentation that puts into question, opens up the question about dignity and human dignity and freedom, breaks with this temptation of preservatism or conservationism and defending cultural legacies that finally end up in very conservative positions, and gives us a way of new forms of criticism, of being really in front of the challenges of our time, and from the position I said before of what is happening, what is going on, and what are we doing. The transitions are there. The transitions are not the contrast between a past and the future, between something that we should preserve and something we should build up from new beginnings, but the transitions are these tensions between what is there and what the conflicts, and the challenges that need from us an engagement for transformation. So if we ask ourselves what is going on, many things are going on, and I think we are in historical moment where things are going on very, very quickly. Perhaps each moment is felt like that by their own people, but I think we all feel, you know, this acceleration of changes that perhaps were not expected in very different senses. But if we are talking about how humanities can interact with our different situations, I would point out at least three aspects. Of course, I'm not the only one, but three aspects that I think that can give us ways to discuss now. The first one, an aspect that I think is, you know, it's crossing many of the transformations, of the transitions, of the challenges that we are facing, is a very important institutional shift. I was talking about before about institutions and how to interact with them. I think we are from a certain time experimenting a very important institutional shift that is what is going on is that the modern institutions for knowledge and education, that means school system, university system, cultural institutions, are changing its function in the way the nowadays subjects are being constructed. So if what we are as subjects, and subjects in English has this double sense that is very interesting, because it means the subject, that means, you know, who is the who of a predication, of an action, of an identity, of whatsoever, and at the same time the subdito in Spanish, I don't know in Polish how you say subdito, no, the master and the subject. We have to, in Spanish it's not the same word. The subdito is the master and the subject, and the el sujeto is the subject that stands on the place, you know, there. It's the who of everything. So in this double sense of the word, you know, subjects of modernity were being constructed to this set of institutions, you know, that led life through a certain path of inscription in a certain order, political order, cultural identity, etc. And that meant a very specific combination of freedom and obedience. And we cannot talk too long about that, but it's the subject of the modern subject is that, no? Is that a subject that puts its freedom at the service of a certain social order. No? That's this voluntary servitude that Lavoisier, a French thinker already in the 16th century already wrote about. No? Because you don't know it, it's a very interesting small book, the Triptych of the the discourse of the voluntary servitude. It was written in the 16th century, but he was like a visionary of what it meant to be part of modern societies that were beginning at that moment. No? And it means that, no? I want to obey. That's the social contract. That's the social contract. I want to obey, not blindly, because there is this will and this contract, but the combination, the formula that joins freedom and obedience is the clue of this modern subject, and the institutions of culture and education were the factory of that subject. And the question is, what is the subject nowadays? Where is this modern subject that nowadays is, I want to obey, I want to consume, I want to what? No? I want to buy. I want to be part of what? I think that this uncertainty about what is the will is where new forms that we all know very well of authoritarianism, but also of individualism at the same time are working very well together now in our societies. I wanted to show a very well-known losing well, it was just to make a small break. It was this Christmas days in Barcelona. Perhaps some of you, if you've been in Barcelona, you've seen this house. It's in Paseo de Gracia. It's one of the Gaudí most important buildings. And I had searched it before. Perhaps here is well, you can see it a little bit here. That was these days before coming here in Barcelona. One of these Gaudí houses in Paseo de Gracia, and the lighting for Christmas was this. The big words: equality, love, honesty, passion, happiness, respect, freedom, and peace, with the verb by, linking these values. By freedom, by peace, by happiness, by. There was a big discussion in town because people started to make complaints through Twitter and everything. A friend of mine that is a director of a theater, Sala Beckett, perhaps some of you know it, it was one of the ancient alternative theaters in Barcelona, was animating through the net people to go and just make this lightning disappear. He was really attacked by a lot of people. So this kind of moments, where we are now, where things like that can be really lead to fight, to very hard and rough fights. And what I read afterwards is that because this building is, the owners of these buildings are a bank, the foundation of a bank, the social foundation of a bank. That's how culture is owned nowadays, because this is a museum and everything. And the ones who did this lighting were the students of a very well-known school of design, that is Elisava, one of the most important in Barcelona, and that pretends to be a very very vanguardist school of design. So when I read that the students of this Elisava school had proposed this lighting, for me it was like, wow, no? What's this? So I think the subject nowadays has to do with that, this confusion between big words that new also new political forces are also using, and at the same time, and with no apparent contradiction, individualism, consumerism, this life open to all possibilities at the same time. So again, back to the question about institutions, and then school or institutions of knowledge and institutions of culture, what is their function nowadays? Being palaces of for the consumption of the desires and wishes of this subject that can buy even these values, or are the place where to administrate new forms of obedience to this kind of very authoritarian practices? What are they? And that's not clear. No? That's not clear. And I think there's a moment of transition too, in that sense, that puts us in, I think, in the situation of taking our institutional experimentations very seriously, no? and really try to analyze. I think you've been doing that, and that's why Biennale exists, no? To analyze what is our function, no? And what are we doing and not doing, or thinking that we are doing and we are really not doing in this very confusion moment in the and then the question about the who, no, or the whom, for who and for whom, and this this subject question that can be opened, no? And we can ask very radically, who are we, no? When we gather, or when we join, or when we find ourselves engaged with other in education or in thinking together in another ways. This institutional shift, I think, that has a lot to do with what I call in this transition humanities, and then in a wider but still small book that is this one, Nueva Ilustración Radical, what I call this cognitive project of capitalism. With critical thinking has been talking a lot about, from the 60s and the 50s, about cultural industry, about cultural capitalism, about culture as one of the most important resources of post-industrial capitalism. But I think that nowadays capitalism is beyond also this idea of cultural industry and cultural capitalism. We are deep inside what some of the leaders call this fourth industrial and scientific revolution. And this fourth industrial and scientific revolution, they sell it very much through images of new technologies, artificial intelligence and these kind of things, but it is about what is to be human, what means to be human, and what are the limits of human experiences. And that's what fourth revolution is about. And I think that's why also humanities, not from a defensive essentialist position, but have to go deep inside this dispute, this debate about the human limits. I wanted to put you a very short video, and with this we'll start to end. And so I will from one of the leaders of this idea of fourth industrial revolution, because you will see that it's very interesting how he argues the idea, how he explains the idea, and how he is talking about a revolution that is taking place. It has no subject. Who is doing this revolution is never named. It's a revolution that takes place as a tsunami, as a natural force, as something that simply happens. And what these people address to their audience, and that means humanity for them, is that what is the challenge of this moment is to adapt to this revolution. So the revolution is taking place. In a sense, the politicized sense of revolution. The revolution is taking place, so you can adapt or not, and it depends on how you adapt to it. You will be inside or outside, in the center or in the periphery, or you will be included, or you will be just vanished by this tsunami force that will just have the power not to change everything. So I ask, what is a revolution to which we can only adapt and take a less looser position than others? But that's what it's about, no? And that's the question about the subject that I was doing. And what institutions are working on that sense of adapting subjectivities, no? And adaptative subjectivities. I work a lot with teachers of school, primary school and school system, and it's what these innovation reforms that I think are all over. We were talking yesterday and today, I think it's also here, their ideology is that one, to make students capable of adapting themselves to, we don't know what, to an uncertain future, a future we don't know nothing about it. So they need to be flexible, they need to be adaptative, they need to be creative, but on the sense of just generating responses to what is going on. So I think that's the question. No? We want to collaborate with this adaptative subjectivity, or we believe that the emancipatory position is to have tools of creation and of resistance, of taking a position that doesn't accept just what is going on as an irreversible future. And I think that different powers nowadays are playing very dangerously, are embracing all of us in this very dangerous idea of an irreversible future. A future that is already written and that we can just take or be completely wasted, as a human waste. Let's listen to that, and then I will just finish and we'll start the conversation.
The fourth industrial revolution will impact our lives completely. It will not only change how we communicate, how we produce, how we consume, it will change actually us, our own identity, which of course gives life to such policies and developments like smart traffic, smart government, smart cities. What we will see is that everything will be integrated into an ecosystem driven by big data and driven particularly by close cooperation also of governments with business, civil society, and this revolution will come at a breathtaking speed. It will be like a tsunami. And actually, it's not just a digital revolution, it's digital, of course physical with nanotechnology, but it's also biological. And those three dimensions provide the particular force to this revolution. So what the World Economic Forum is doing is to promote this public-private cooperation to master the fourth industrial revolution. The fourth industrial revolution will have multifold impacts. Of course, every industry will be digitalized, will be disintermediated, and has to define a new business model. But it's not only business which is affected, it's government which has to move over to agile government, it is society as a whole, with the danger of job losses, but also with the need to reskill and upskill people fast. So there's an impact on society. So we will have to prepare very well for this revolution, and I feel that the Asian countries with a relatively young population can manage and master this revolution easier compared to other countries in the world. What is particularly important is the educational system. even in the 19th century, we have to adapt it to the need to change continuously, for example, jobs. So the new educational system has not only been aiming at developing digital capabilities, and I should add ethical norms, but it also has to be based on a lifelong educational system.
It's a very good resume of good part of what's going on. So my last question would be, who is doing the revolution nowadays? And who is writing the future for us? And how can we just not prepare to be well prepared for that, but build up and prepare other ways of being subjects of our own and common lives. And that's the questions I wanted to address to you. I think that the open field and the open we that gathers us together tonight has these questions in our minds, in our bodies, and in our desires. So I hope we can discuss a little bit about that and have your own perspectives about all these ideas. Thank you very much. I am standing because I don't see you if I sit, but you can just ask or intervene as you want. Yes.
Yes. For me, for my own discipline in music, it's interesting how the humanities are transforming with art and using maybe some approaches from art, and this is not from nowadays, from the 70s. This experimental position I found really interesting with the experimental music, which is John Cage today, this blank space, leaving this space to share the space with others. I don't know if you work with artists also. I saw the beginning of the presentation that you showed this really beautiful page with the blank space. And it's only with the designers, or you work also with musicians, or with how was
Yes, I think it's very, very important what you ask. These transitions between artistic practices, activist practices, and theoretical practices. I think from a very long path, many people are working on that. The last decades in many different ways, and it is not just about interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary, but really about doing, or what the other thing was about, knowing, doing, and understanding together. So we need dimensions of experiences that cannot be just trapped into certain disciplines. So in my case, I've been collaborating in many different ways with artists or artistic practices, performance, theater, visual art, also in this independent studies program at the museum, etc. So it's always an experimental relation to these ways of approaching problems and questions. And in the case of Presentiment, it's very interesting because we started, we found the tool, this page, this Dina 4 page, just with this base, in this basement, and always ready to be again receptive to a new emerging idea. At the beginning, without any specific graphic designer, but with performers that were collaborating with us in other projects. In the meanwhile, there was the 15M events, so many people spent a lot of time together on the streets. So we were messing our times and our imaginaries, and for a long time these months. So people with which we were in projects, body action projects before, started after 15M. There was a moment of this calm after the storm, no? And this moment of starting repression and criminalization very strongly. We needed to find a way to continue expressing collectively something. No? That's what gives birth to a present image. So it's from body to body, street, and page and graphic. So at the beginning we didn't have knowledge we all have with a computer, but we didn't have a specific graphic design knowledge. So it was not the classical idea of we have an idea, we go to the specialist, in this case, and translate this idea into a graphic proposal. So we found ourselves in the need of expressing visually and graphically in the way of finding the most expressive tool to share. And then it's when some graphic designers appeared and helped us. And now the last, because that started 2012, so 6 years now, almost 7. And in the last year, the last 3-4 years, there's a more permanent graphic designer among us, that she has become part of the rest of the activities of Inspired Life. So it's not that she is only doing the graphical part of the work. She's one of the everything else allies for everything. So it's this mixture of necessities that in the end become also shared knowledges, very practical.
I have a question. Thank you for the lecture. My question is also about the connection between different disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about different disciplines, you mentioned only like the humanities side. Yeah, I'm sorry.
You have a microphone, so it's gonna be
I'm
easier.
stressed.
Here you go.
So you mentioned that different, like the connection between humanities and arts and social sciences, but you didn't mention in any way natural sciences. It's like the most obvious for me, at least, connection between dualistic point of view of the world. What about this connection when you're like making posters? It's really close to the icon graphics, and it could be a way how to represent natural sciences ideas, which could respond to the contemporary problems.
Thank you very much for that question, because it's an issue that I wanted to point out at the end of my talk, but it was late and I stopped with the video. And it's very important because I think that what is going on when we are reshaping human being and human capacities and human senses, in the way that's taking place nowadays. Of course, anthropocentrism is past. No, we are we are entering in another relation to what we call nature, but then nature starts to mean other things. And in this in this new continuity between culture and nature, human and non-human beings, I think is one of the most interesting debates about this dispute about the human. Where starts and where continues our relation to this, to the non-human beings and with ourselves as not only human. We are many other things, or we are many other layers of meaning, and not just what we historically and culturally called human. So I think from the side of humanities, social sciences, feminism, etc., all these issues are being theorized and discussed, and from artistic also practices, there's a lot of proposals in that sense. What is more difficult to find is scientists that have the will to participate openly to these debates. So if there are, I invite you to join to the discussions. We've been trying, for example, in the Aula Oberta, we had the participation of this is the only one who has a tool, very clear tool. This David Bueno is a genetist from the University of Barcelona, genetist and neurobiologist, and he's doing a lot of work about education, artistic practices, etc., from the point of view of a biologist. But it's quite difficult to have this both sides dialogue and interaction. I think it's becoming more and more usual, but I hope it becomes more and more. For example, in my new job at university, I'm now starting a new job at the Open University of Catalonia, and I will direct a new program of studies that will be called Master of Philosophy for the Contemporary Challenges. So it's master of with philosophical tools, but to not to remain into the philosophical field, but to use them on the field. What is going on in contemporary times. And for example, I've managed to build up a team of professors where we have ambientalists and environmentalists, sociologists, scientific people, because I think it's impossible to address these contemporary challenges without the participation of also of scientific practices. So it's very important.
I too thank you very much for the lecture, and I am a political analyst, so I work in the field of politics, and I have a question concerning the Spanish sort of response, the Spanish experience in responding to the challenge of the fourth industrial revolution, because when I look at Poland and sort of the state of the awareness state of our society, I'm Polish. It seems to me that in this area, this preparedness for the fourth industrial revolution, we are in a chaos. Right now we have a very conservative government, and which moves our education system towards conservatism, but at the same time we have all these digital tools that are exploited by politicians, by all kinds of salesmen. I mean, we use Facebook, and thanks to Facebook I learned about this lecture, and I wouldn't have learned about it probably if it wasn't for Facebook. But on the other hand, we are sort of bombarded, or bombed, I don't know, by all kinds of commercials. So how to prepare young people to be sort of, how is it in Spain? You've answered my question partly, right, that you are starting this new program, which I think is a great idea, and I have no idea whether any philosophers cooperate with Polish schools. You've mentioned that during your lecture that you do cooperate with schools. So maybe if you could share with us the practical things that I don't know whether the Spanish government and cultural institutions are thinking about the fourth industrial revolution and what the academics, people like you, philosophers, do. Okay, probably it's a topic for another lecture, but maybe some ideas.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you want to link with this?
Yeah. As a response to your question, I feel that lots of Polish schools are starting a new program developing multidisciplinary learning. Like, for example, Warsaw Private Academia High School, when I am. And like our subjects are linking lots of different fields at the same time. On my biology classes, we are mainly studying philosophy. And I think that this is the way how we can prepare for the next revolution.
But you said that you represent the private school.
Yeah, and the public school is completely different. I experienced both, so yeah.
I wanted to ask a question, but I think it links very well with this, and that's sort of like an additional layer. Because you talked about humanities as a practice of looking for sense and meaning in the context of human dignity and freedom. However, I think that precisely this whole commercial sphere of contemporary capitalism is very much competing with us in this enterprise. And this is new about capitalism, the way it functions now. This is not 19th century capitalism, but it was in the factory, you were part of it, and when you were going to shop, you were part of it, but outside of it, you were in a discursive communication zone outside. And now, this singularity looking for community. This is Facebook. You want a social experience, you want a dating or an erotic experience, there is an app for that. Apple had this slogan when it launched iPhone, there is an app for that. Which I think puts humanities in a completely different context. It's precisely how are we going, like this questions and comments, how are we going to find ourselves in this new, pretty new situation of having this kind of powerful competition.
Altogether is very complicated, but I'll try to give some continue your questions. The more concrete question about Spain and this new so-called revolution, etc. I think that from the part of the government or political regulators and this kind of issues, the response is the same as everywhere. How can we not just lose the race and not be the last of the queue because it's a competition? What this man here is telling us is that people, the last will have nothing. So be prepared means to compete, to have a place, not to lose one's chair in the show. So, and that means, for example, in the field of education, this insistence about innovation, that if you just think about innovation, it's okay, changing things and make it better, but it is a way of depolitizing what means education, not transformation of education, what means an emancipatory sense of education, and innovation means just adapt to the new technologies, adapt to the new capacities, adapt to the new abilities, and just follow the path of what it means not to be too rigid, too fixed, because we will be trapped into a past. We will be the past of humanity. And so I think the official response is the same everywhere is enter into that competition and find a way to be more innovative than the neighbor and just enter into that competition. And what I see is that there is two ways of resisting or adopting a critical position in this context. One is very defensive, that is just negating, no, and not wanting to participate to this competition, innovation, etc., and defending the old essences of whatsoever is what I call this nostalgic or this very preservative way of not losing what culture means or what certain ways of behaving meant. I think it's a loser position because just defending past is if that's the only position is fragile because as this man said, the tsunami continues. And another way is entering into the debate with the question about the sense and the who of all that. That's the questions I was putting here. No? For who is doing this revolution? Are we part of this who? Can we discuss about the values that are being mobilized? Which are the powers? Which are the interests? So entering into this, not just seeing it as a tsunami that comes and you just get put aside or jump to the wave, but really making it problematic. No? And here I come to your response. Entering into the problematic is what humanities can do and what this kind of positions cannot do. Because these kind of positions, also political positions that are linked to those one, avoid the problematic. What is not solvable with technology or with a flag or with something very, very clear and very easy. So I think if we have the capacity to enter into what is problematic, and that means being what I said at the beginning of my talk, being able to think what needs to be thought, to think what we don't know how to solve, to enter into this process of elaborating a reason for something that is not already done by a technological solutionism or by a political authoritarianism, or then there I find a way, a position of resistance that is not just fixing aside and is not just adapting to what is coming. And I think that as engaged cultural agents of something, we should stay in this possibility of open the problems and being able to stay in the problematic dimension of what is going on. The competition with the capitalist existence, because it's not just consumption or working time exploitation, is an existence that goes, is completely across, immersed in this way of. I think the competition with that is difficult and hard because, of course, there's a disproportion of forces, and very obviously. But I think there's a big difference because Facebook or whatsoever is a place where your singularity exists if it gets a continuous self-confirmation. It's you that is being liked, that is being shared, that is being so, and the others are the same. They need their self-confirmation of what they are. I'm happy here, I'm happy there, so many people here, no? And you are just getting, but there's no common dimension of nothing. So there's a juxtaposition and a multiplication of individualities that fit their individuality just being consumed by others. So it's a very specific logic that is very quickly satisfactory. And the ones who study those things, no, say that it activates the same parts of our brain that get satisfaction from certain emotions and etc. So it's very addictive and very quickly satisfactory. But it leaves you alone in this. So I think it has a limit, and perhaps a lot of contemporary pathologies have to do with this limit. So how long can we support or stand this kind of consumption of ourselves, no? Feeding our own appearance of individuality through these tools. I think we run very fast with history, but I think it has breaks, it has zones of non-light, no? Of dark. It projects shadows that I think we should have to, or we will have to explore, because there perhaps happen the important things.
So, I think I
Okay.
So, in addition to what you said about the competition of consumptionism and humanism, don't you think this may be the advantage of humanism is that we can learn how to ask questions? Because consumptionism always gives you the answers, and probably, I don't know if it's delusion, but the true wisdom could be in this, that we learn and we teach how to ask proper questions, not to give proper answers. And also, you said about that we educate to adapt, and that's why I think it's an answer. But if we educate to change,
Exactly.
if we educate to create, then it's about questions, not the answers.
Exactly. You find the perfect words for what I was trying to say about the problematic, no? The relation with the problems and not with the solutions is better said than me. What I was trying to say. So it's exactly that.
So maybe one other question: do you think that we can? Because I'm a PhD candidate on education faculty, so that's why. Can we learn? Can we teach people to ask these proper questions?
Yes.
Because that's for me.
We can perfectly. It's what this education is about. The problem is that it means fighting against certain institutional contexts. It depends. There are some that are more favorable to these possibilities, some that are very aggressive to this possibility. It depends a lot, because we are talking in abstract, and that would mean entering in a very more specific situations. But of course, it's what education is about. So, for example, nowadays in Catalonia, there is a widening project that is growing a lot, of not just bringing back philosophy to secondary school, which was kicked off many time ago by the right government. Now it is coming back to secondary school next year. We will see. but bringing it to the first levels of primary school and starting from 4 years so really make philosophy in a very open sense of it. That means capacity of thinking, of questioning, of discussing, of finding the hidden question, and this making of it one of the axes, the main axis of primary education. And for example, this is being led, this is being possible because a group of teachers started to defend that project many years ago, started as a very small project, they formed other teachers in that field, and now non-officially, because this is not officially in the curricula of the schools, but you find more and more public schools that the teachers by their own adopt this project. No? So it's a very small example, and it's very funny because it happens at the same moment where all these very innovative, technological, way of organizing education is taking place. So you could say it's contradictory because on the one side, schools tend to learn children only to react to menus and to build small projects about very specific things and to adapt constantly to anything that is happening. And at the same time, teachers by themselves have, through years and years of perseverance and sharing this, being formed one by the others, etc., are like contaminating school with this kind of. So I think we should. That's why I talked before against the idea of thinking by models. No, we have this, and now we are going to think a new model of school for where questions can be. No, just start contaminating and go to the blank space, even if it's very small. There is where things can grow, and just be convinced that, of course, children make questions always, and good questions. And what is the problem? That what they are taught is don't do this question. No, why? Because adults get uncomfortable when they don't have the solution. So just start to break this place, no? And I think that many things can be done if we start by doing them and not just waiting to have the model.
Do you have more questions, comments, your own thoughts to share?
I might have just one thought, maybe a question. It's like also to respond to what was already said, but I was thinking that you just said that we just have to act in this blank space. Of course, it's like, for me, it's like completely obvious. We have to do it. And there was a time when our ancestors, let's say our grandparents, our parents had other duties as a generation. And in our generation, you can see the crisis of capitalism, the crisis of individualism, the problem with the virtual world, crisis of so many things. Yes, perfect. This is the moment when the people who are in the humanities? Yes, humanities. We have to act. This is our job. This is why we decided for that profession. This is our passion, profession. This is what we have to do. This is our responsibility, but not in a way like we have to do it because it's a revolution. Because there were also generations which had to do the revolution, which has to use lots of violence, physical violence, really these weapons and other things. We have this very big comfort as people living in a very well developed societies, even though there are limits, and we have to take this responsibility, we have to take this privilege and the huge rank that we have. So for me this is beautiful. Thank you very much for coming from Barcelona. open this blank space to us.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for reminding me.
Thank you very much.
Personal.
Thank you very much.
I totally don't agree. I don't feel that it's a responsibility of one specific theme. I feel that it is the responsibility of every person, because we have to respond to the subject that we get from the environment. And it's not just the one field has to
Yeah, it can be anything.
respond.
I didn't say
Like
just
humanity.
anybody.
I don't think that there is any division in any work. Mathematics includes lots of humanities. Like there is also this dialogue between different disciplines. And when we are talking about interdisciplinary and about the empowerment of just one theme, it doesn't make sense to me.
I didn't say it's just the humanities. I just
Oh,
said
okay,
because this is the subject of the lecture. It can be anybody.
Yeah.
No, I think that the solution, and not the solution, the way to undo this discussion is the idea that I propose to you that not to understand humanities as a specific set of disciplines. That means what we call letters, no? Literature, history, etc., but as an open field of activities that assume a certain challenge and a certain point of view. So that means, of course, there's a humanistic approach to mathematics, and it doesn't mean the theory of mathematics or the aesthetics of mathematics, but is an experience of mathematics that is able to approach us to this capacity of making sense of our own experience and dignify and make free or give more freedom to our capacities of thinking of everything. So I would like to not just to free the word, the term humanities from its disciplinary capture into just a certain group of academic disciplines. It's an activity, it's a way, and there's a lot of so-called humanities that are not humanities, are technical ways of analyzing texts or whatsoever that are not relating to any sense of it that happens in academia. So we can find experts in many fields of the so-called humanities that I wouldn't include to this idea of disengaging and transition humanities. I wouldn't discuss between who is who has to take the responsibility. Of course, anyone can take it.
I have a very good example for this in the disciplines which are mentioning now. It's like I have a friend from the university in Krakow, and she's teaching philosophy to scientists who are practicing science, who are like many kinds of science, like who are working in genetics and influencing them, like telling them about the philosophy, about the ethics, is influencing their professional choices, how they will develop their research. This is just obvious, how these things are linking, because will they work for this company, will they guide their research this way, will they, this is very human thing, this is psychology, how you make choices.
In our case, for example, this new program of studies that I'm preparing at the Open University of Catalonia and that will start on next October is a master's degree offered from a department of arts and humanities. It's philosophy for contemporary challenges, and now the Polytechnic University of Barcelona, that is the big house of engineers and this kind of disciplines, have asked to us to offer some of the subjects of our master as optional for some of their postgrad programs from the Polytechnic University. So it's a good example of that, no? How they are also in search for the possibility of reflecting about what they are doing. And I think it's not generalized, but it's a good sign of how, from different approaches, we can take together the possibility or the responsibility to think about what we are doing, and to question it and to find the good questions. Sorry.
I have a question. How could you define where you see the link between asking questions, having ideas, contesting, etc., and practicing it? So there is, I see often a gap in humanities between just expressing, saying, contesting, and making people perhaps feel uncomfortable with what they choose, like with this experiment with the building by. So people feel probably that there is some truth in that, but they don't feel good because either they don't want or they don't know how to change it. They are too lost, and I feel the society is too lost, and there are many voices saying that what we experiment is fake, what we seek is fake. But then I feel there is often a gap between these, like that we state at the anarchy part, we just express there is something wrong, okay, but we want to make it flourish, the change.
Yeah, thank you. The big problem, of how to. I wouldn't translate your question into the problem of theory and praxis, because it's not that. I think that we can all assume that this duality has no sense. Thinking is doing, and doing means doing in a transformative way means also thinking about what we are doing. So I think for us this blank space was also a way to not to be dissociated between activism on one side and theoretical or artistic or cultural activity on the other. So how to also blur this gap between action, social, political action, and expression, not just theory, but expression. But it's always difficult because, for example, for a certain time in Spain, we lived with the possibility of saying almost everything. Everything could be said. No? There was no clear censorship. There was not clear. So the space for expression, thinking, cultural critique, etc., was very wide. But the space for action was very narrow because there was no movement. There was no. So we could all feel really free to. We could find all kinds of very very radical and very experimental expressions of all kinds. But when the things have gone difficult in the recent years, economical crisis, territorial conflicts, etc., we are experimenting now how the difficulties are the same at the level of the action and at the level of the expression. We have, as you may know, not only politicians and activists in prison, but also musicians, a lot of musicians, singers that are in jail or outside the country. So I think we are entering in a time where again saying is dangerous, where expressing oneself is complicated, And so I think we have to think ourselves in relation to all dimensions of action. No? Expressing is also an action if we don't just accept the limits of what can be said or what can be expressed or what, and the limits are, at least in our context, are narrowing very, very quickly. So how do we relate to that? No? And how can we just find the links between different levels and kinds of action? And that's why, for me, everything I taught is a form of activism, and I couldn't talk about everything, but it's linked to social forms of activism too. I could have explained the same from the side of, I talked about 15M and many other moments that could be linked to different moments also of cultural experimentation. So I think that's the way, no, of breaking the lines between these different layers and levels of criticism.
Yes, just a small addendum to my first question. I will try to be brief. What I was trying to say at the beginning with the art and the experimental approach, now listening on the debate, it's more clear for me that as I feel in art, we have this experimental approach, which is a way of thinking and a way of developing, and this is not from always, it's changed in the last 40 years. But I feel with your exposition, with your debate, that this is changing also in humanities, like not a box closed discipline, but also like a way of problematizing reality, even the same way of learning.
Exactly. Yes.
Like a biosphere,
yes, it's more like an open ecosystem, no? And not just boxes. Exactly.
That's why I mentioned some case, like open, or open piece of work,
exactly.
Open
Exactly. I agree. That's exactly that.
So this is, I'm just trying to understand this. This is the approach, the way of thinking like an open world.
Yes, for example, as an example, these people that I use just the places, you know, and if you, those who can read Spanish, you can find the lectures and an interview with each of the participants, and most of them is very funny because I didn't make the plan, exactly the plan that this would be like that. They have studied one thing. They developed another practice. For example, one is I think that this one there is dramaturg, but she's historian, and then she entered into theater, and then she writes theater, but at the same time is something. And for example, this one, or many with them happened. There's one that is sociologist, but is a poet, but is, and not as boxes that I write poetry at night because I have the time to do it. No, because it has to do with a certain way of not just being one thing and representing the perfect shape of a social scientist or a historian that. And it was very funny when each of the participants presented himself, and in the interviews you can read it through. No one fits exactly in what supposedly gives him or her a title, or a condition. Well, I'm doing that, but in fact I come from another world, but then I find this practice more useful for something. And so no one fits into his or her definition. And I think that's a very clear answer to your question. No? I think what's happening nowadays, the boxes we have and the definitions we have to name what we are doing are completely no desbordadas, are like our own practices go beyond that. So and need to use and to find other languages to evolve, no, in what is needed to be done. So I think it's one of the things that's going on is this one. We should explore more in these ways.
Thank you very much for this inspiring lecture. We had a long discussion, a lot of comments. I will switch to Polish for a brief announcement. Ponieważ staramy się podchodzić systemowo i systematycznie do rzeczy, którymi się zajmujemy, wykład Mariny nie jest pojedynczym wydarzeniem. Zaczynamy cały blok, serię spotkań, dyskusji, wykładów dotyczących kondycji humanistyki i humanistyki przyszłości. To jest blok, którego kuratorem jest Michał Kuziak, literaturoznawca, profesor Uniwersytetu Warszawskiego. Jutro mamy pierwsze spotkanie, także również serdecznie Państwa zapraszam o godzinie 18. Thank you again, and hopefully we'll have a chance to host you again in the future to continue this discussion.
Very good. Thank you very much.